Silas sat at the edge of the sleeping chamber, staring at the rows of unconscious energy thieves. Their breaths were slow, shallow, not dying, but not living either. Stolen, paused, suspended. The pulsing machine hummed like an artificial heartbeat, feeding off the silent suffering of the people who had refused to fake joy. Silas felt sick. Leora knelt beside one of the sleepers, a middle-aged man with silver hair and soft lines around his closed eyes. She brushed a hand over his wrist. He used to be a therapist, she whispered. People loved him, but the more he listened to others, the more drained he became. The city labeled him low voltage and seized him during a mandatory workplace mixer. Silas stared at the man's face, peaceful but empty. This is wrong. His voice cracked. No one even chooses to be here. The city decides it for them. The man in gray nodded gently. That is the nature of forced happiness. It demands sacrifice. Silas clenched his fists. I want to help them. You will, the man said, but first you need to help yourself. The return to the hall. They led Silas back into the main chamber, the quiet zone. Lanterns glowed softly. People moved slowly, naturally, without smiling for approval or breathing for performance. He saw one man sitting alone, sipping tea, a woman reading an old book about the philosophy of self, a child drawing in chalk on the stone floor, not for applause, not for likes, just because she wanted to. Every act in this hidden place was voluntary for Silas. The absence of noise felt heavier than any party he'd ever attended, because in silence, there was nowhere to hide from himself. He paced, restless. Leora watched him. Tell me what's bothering you. It's stupid. Try me. Silas exhaled. I'm not brave. I didn't come here to rebel or resist. I came here because I was tired. I feel like I don't deserve to be here. Leora folded her arms. Who told you that rest must be earned? Silas blinked. Everyone. That's the problem, she said. They taught you to believe freedom comes only after performance. The truth is the opposite. The man in gray approached. We don't ask our members to be heroes, he said. We only ask them to be honest. Silas sank into a seat beside a lantern. Then honestly, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I want. I don't even know if I belong here. The man smiled warmly. That means you're ready to begin. The city notices. A crackle of static echoed through the cavern. Silas tensed. People turned their heads. A projector screen flickered to life. Crude, improvised, connected to hacked surveillance feeds from above. On the screen, the 500-hour celebration continued in full frenzy. Lights flashing, drones whirring. Then the image zoomed in on the stairwell entrance. Two party marshals scanned the area with weapons shaped like glowing staffs. Unregistered energy dip detected. One bark. A civilian is missing. Silas felt his stomach drop. They're looking for me. Leora nodded. They will keep looking. On screen, the marshals questioned dancers, demanded compliance scans, and pulled several citizens aside for attitude checks. Should we relocate? Silas asked. No. The man in gray said calmly. We are hidden well. But you, Silas, you can't stay below forever. Silas frowned. Why not? Leora answered before the man could. Because you're still connected to the system. Your meter is still active. Silas looked down at the faint orange glow on his chest. So take it off, he said. The man shook his head. It isn't that simple. Removing it would send an alert. They'd come here. Silas backed away a step. So I'm a liability. No, Leora said firmly. But you are a turning point. Silas swallowed hard. What does that mean? The man in gray gestured toward the lantern-lit hall. Most who find us do so after they've been drained, when the city has finished using them. You came here awake, aware. He paused. Which means you can choose what? Leora stepped closer. To vanish, or to return. Silas's breath caught. Return to the city, to the endless noise. Fake smiles, suffocating parties. Why would I ever go back? The man in gray answered gently. Because if you don't return, the city will hunt the people you care about. Silas froze. My co-workers, yes. My neighbors, yes. My family, yes. Leora said softly. And they will punish them for your absence. Silas felt the cold weight of that truth sink into his ribs. The man in gray placed a hand on his shoulder. You can stay here and be safe, or you can go back and be watched. His voice lowered. But either way, you must decide who you are. Silas's voice trembled. I don't know who I am. The man smiled. That is exactly why you need silence. The solitude chamber. They led him into a small circular room carved into the stone. No lanterns, no lights, no sound except the faint echo of his own breathing. This is where we come to hear ourselves, Leora said from the doorway. Silas nodded shakily. How long do I stay? As long as you need to, she said. He stepped inside. The door closed softly behind him. Darkness swallowed him whole. For the first time in his life, there was no noise, no expectations, no performance. Just Silas, himself alone, silent. And in the silence, something inside him finally spoke. Not words, a feeling, a realization, a truth he had been drowning out for years. He was not broken for disliking the city's noise. The city was broken for fearing its own silence. He exhaled, slow, steady, free. And when the door finally opened, Silas was no longer trembling. He stood. He walked out. And Leora saw something new in his eyes. Silas emerged from the solitude chamber feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because he finally understood himself. Heavier because the truth came with consequences. Leora watched him quietly. You found your answer? Silas nodded. I did. She tilted nodded her head. And I'm going back. A faint sadness flickered in her eyes, but she smiled anyway. Then you're braver than you think. The man in gray approached and handed Silas a small device no larger than a pebble, smooth, silver, and warm. What is this? Silas asked. A dampener. The man said. It will mask your true emotional readings for 12 hours. After that, the city will detect your unrest again. You must use the time wisely. Silas pocketed it. Leora adjusted the collar of his shirt, straightening it like someone preparing a soldier for battle. When you're back up there, she said quietly, remember that smiles can be weapons, but silence is armor. Silas nodded, though his hands shook. Ready? She asked. No. But yes. She led him to a hidden tunnel, an old maintenance shaft that opened behind a row of holographic billboards. At the end of the tunnel, she touched his wrist. When the time comes, she whispered, send a signal. We'll find you. Silas swallowed the tightness in his throat. Thank you. Then he climbed the last rung of the ladder and pushed the grate open. The world above was blinding. Welcome back to the noise. Silas emerged behind the massive billboard of a smiling influencer. The hologram beamed with enforced cheer. Your energy is your duty. A street pulsed with drones, crowds, neon banners, and the synthetic heartbeat of a city performing happiness with the precision of a machine. Silas stepped into the flow of bodies. A notification chirped on his vibe meter status. Orange acceptable monitoring. Minimal. The dampener worked. For now, he kept his head down and joined the crowd moving toward the morning cheer march, a mandated parade designed to boost civic positivity. But as he approached the plaza, everything stopped him cold. Huge banners draped the sides of buildings. Screens flashed with bold red warnings. At first, Silas didn't understand what he was seeing. Then he did. It was him, or rather, a grainy, distorted photo of him entering the east stairwell the night before. The message beneath it: beware, negativity spreads, energy thief at large, report all low voltage activity. Silas's pulse hammered. He pulled his hood lower. Screens everywhere replayed the same footage. His image enlarged, manipulated, made sinister. A robotic voice announced from hovering speakers, this individual has rejected collective harmony. Protect yourself. Smile when approached. People around him murmured anxiously. One woman whispered, I heard energy thieves drain your happiness if you stand too close. A man shuddered, they can suck the vibe right out of you. Silas gritted his teeth. They weren't afraid of him. They were afraid of a story. A lie. His lie. The city had turned him into a monster. The party marshals pushed through the crowd, clad in shimmering uniforms that pulsed gold with artificial joy. Silas stiffened. The marshals scanned the area with handheld vibe detectors. One paused. Energy fluctuation detected. She barked. Check radius. Silas forced himself to breathe evenly. The dampener warmed in his pocket, masking his fear, but only barely. The second marshal pointed toward the street. Movement near the billboard. Possible match. Silas slipped behind a delivery drone and ducked into a side alley. The marshals followed. The dampener pulsed faster. Silas ran. The chase through the party district. He darted through a maze of neon-lit corridors. Behind him, the marshals shouted, Stop! Your negativity is harming the collective. Silas wanted to laugh. He wanted to scream. Instead, he ran harder. Bright banners whipped past. Togetherness is truth. Your silence is suspicious. Only smiles keep you as safe. He burst into another plaza, a massive outdoor daylight disco where thousands of citizens danced in choreographed happiness. As he stumbled through them, the crowd recoiled like he carried a disease. Gasps. Whispers. Accusations. He's an energy thief. Don't let him touch you. He'll drain your joy. Silas shoved past a line of dancers, knocking over a holographic projection of fireworks. A drone swooped overhead. Citizen Gray, surrender yourself for rejuvenation. Silas didn't slow. He ducked into a maintenance doorway, tore down a stairwell, and collapsed against a wall. The dampener sputtered weakly, a sign its time was running out. 12 hours had become maybe 10. He pressed a hand to his chest, breathing hard. There's no way I can survive like this. But then the deeper truth hit him. There was no going back, no returning to the parties, no pretending to be someone he wasn't. If he wanted freedom, for himself, for the drained, for everyone trapped in the world of forced joy, he would have to fight for it. Not with fists, with presence, with silence, with truth. He pushed himself up. He had to reach Leora. He had to warn the underground. He had to expose what the city was doing. His dampener flickered again. He didn't have much time. Silas moved deeper into the maintenance tunnels, listening for marshals, but instead he heard a voice. A whisper, PSST. Silas froze. A figure stepped from the shadows, a teenager wearing a hoodie with the symbol of the closed eye embroidered on the chest. The same symbol on Leora's card. You Silas Gray? The kid asked. Silas swallowed. Yes. The kid smiled. Not a manic, city-approved smile. A real one. Good, he said. Leora sent me. Silas's breath caught. She wants you at the edge of the north gate. Now. Why? The kid's smile faded. Because the city just declared you the biggest threat to public happiness in a decade. He paused. And that means you're not just running anymore. Silas stared at him. What am I then? The kid's eyes gleamed. A revolution. They called it the Great Vibe Revolution, though no one alive could remember who started it or why. What people did remember was the rule carved into every billboard, wristband, and digital wall of the city. Good energy is good citizenship. It wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't motivational. It was the law. Every citizen in Neo Terra was required to attend at least 6 state-sponsored social gatherings per day, brunch parties, rooftop parties, lunchtime connection circles, mandatory after-work mingles, midnight vibe rallies, and the ever-despised sunrise energy recalibration ceremonies. Smiling wasn't a choice. Smiling was compliance. Everyone wore a small metal badge on their chest, the vibe meter, a glowing orb that pulsed according to one's social electricity. And energy thieves simply disappeared. Silas Gray, low-voltage human Silas Gray, had always been socially incompatible. As his old-school counselor put it, he preferred the quiet corner of a room to the center of attention. He liked reading instead of mingling, silence instead of speeches, his own thoughts instead of conversations that smelled like fluorescent lights and desperation. As he walked through the neon streets that evening, holographic balloons hovered overhead, projecting the nightly reminder in syrupy voices. Attend a party. Be the best version of yourself, Silas muttered under his breath. I like my current version just fine. His meter dimmed at the complaint warning. The badge chimed. Displeasement detected. Mood drop recorded. Silas slapped a hand over it. I wasn't talking to you. Resistance detected. Consider smiling. The orb brightened just enough to stop flashing. He hated the city. The party itself was a prison. Tonight's mandatory event was the 500-hour celebration, a party that had begun 20 days ago and had not stopped. The city rotated citizens through it like cattle through a neon-lit carousel. The building pulsed with bass before he even stepped inside. Men in lead suits boasted loudly about imaginary accomplishments. Screens floated above the crowd, showing everyone's vibe levels in real time. Silas saw a gold-level woman scream at her partner loud enough to rattle glasses, but because she bounced while doing it, her meter surged even higher. Fake joy counted more than real emotion everywhere. People shouted their happiness so loudly that no one could hear how exhausted they all were. And beneath it all, Silas sensed the hollow truth. None of them were happy. None of them were energized. They were performing joy so hard that their souls had fallen silent. Alan Watts would have had a field day here, Silas thought. He squeezed through dancers, influencers, and those who wished they were both, trying to keep his meter from dipping to low. If it dropped into red, party marshals would drag him to a rejuvenation room. Sometimes they didn't come out at all. A whisper in the noise. Silas made it halfway to the refreshment table before he felt a tug on his sleeve. A girl, maybe late 20s, maybe younger, stood behind him. She had no glow paint, no sparkling accessories, no manic smile. Even stranger, her vibe meter was turned off. He froze. She pressed a finger to her lips. Don't react. He didn't. She leaned in close enough that her breath tickled his ear. Do you want to get out of here? His heart jumped. How? They monitor the exits, not the ones under the city. Silas stared at her. Under the city? She saw the doubt on his face and added quietly, there are others like us. His pulse sped up. You mean low voltage? No, she whispered. I mean people who stopped playing the game. His breath stalled. Was that possible? She slipped a small black card into his hand. No words, just a symbol of a closed eye. Serene, calm, unblinking. When the lights shift to blue, she said, go to the east stairwell. Don't look at the drones. Don't smile. Don't speak. Just walk. Why trust me? He asked. Because, she said, you're the only person in this entire building who hasn't faked a smile all night. Then she vanished into the crowd. Silas looked down at the card. For the first time in years, something warm flickered in his chest. Hope. True hope. The kind that didn't need music, drinks, or good vibes. This was when the lights pulsed gold. Drones dropped glitter like snow, and performers on the balcony screamed motivational slogans about joy, success, and collective chemistry. Everyone shouted back with manic enthusiasm. Silas didn't. His vibe meter flickered from orange to the faintest shade of red, then stabilized only because he took one deep, fake breath. The girl's instructions echoed in his mind. When the lights shift to blue at precisely midnight, the bass cut out. All the golden lights snapped to a sharp, electric blue, washing over the dancers like moonlight on metal. The crowd cheered. They thought it meant the midnight vibe surge, another mandatory high-energy ritual. But Silas knew better. He slipped through bodies trembling with forced excitement and moved toward the east stairwell. His pace was steady, measured. Not too fast. Rushing drew attention. Not too slow. Hesitation drew marshals. He held the black card in his palm, thumb rubbing over the closed eye symbol for courage. At the stairwell door stood a drone. Its red lens rotated lazily, scanning. Silas felt panic bloom in his throat. Don't smile. Don't speak. Don't draw attention. The drone's lens flashed, warning, but then flickered. The girl stepped from behind a column. She held up her wrist. Her vibe meter wasn't off. It was hacked. It glowed the brightest possible gold. The drone chirped with approval, drifting toward her like a moth to flame. Go, she mouthed. Silas exhaled silently and slipped through the stairwell door. The descent inside, the music muffled to a distant heartbeat. The air was cooler, calmer, human again. He started down the concrete steps, every footfall echoing like a secret he was confessing. After 2 flights, he heard voices above, marshals searching. Someone's energy signature dropped off. Find them before their negativity spreads. Negativity, the city's favorite sin. Silas descended faster. At the bottom of the stairs, another door waited, unmarked. The black card slid perfectly into a hidden slot he wouldn't have noticed without feeling for it. The lock released with a soft hiss. He stepped through and froze. The quiet zone, the room was enormous, extending under the city like a forgotten cathedral. And people, dozens, maybe hundreds, sat in a vast circle on the floor. No music, no forced cheerfulness, no vibe meters, just breathing, silence, presence. A man approached, maybe 50, wearing simple gray robes and a serene expression. Welcome, Silas, he said. Silas tensed. How do you know my name? We monitor the ones who are struggling. The man replied. The quiet ones, the ones who don't mistake noise for life. Silas swallowed. What is this place? The man smiled gently. This is what the world looked like before parties became prisons. The girl from the party appeared beside him. She had removed her glitter and mask. Without them, she looked human, real, almost fragile. I'm Leora, she said. It means light, though I've never liked the name, she added with a small smirk. Silas looked around again. People sat alone or in small groups. Some meditated, some napped, some read actual paper books. A few quietly made food over small stoves, soup, bread, nothing complicated. Not one person was performing. This can't be legal, Silas whispered. It's not, Leora said. That's why it's free. The man in gray motioned for Silas to walk with him along the vast hall. You've probably guessed, he said, that vibe energy isn't real. Silas blinked. You mean the meters don't measure anything? The man chuckled softly. Oh, they measure something, but not energy. He stopped beside a wall covered with old posters, torn, faded from the pre-party era. He placed a hand on one. Natural human variation is beautiful. The meters measure compliance. The man continued. Not joy, not connection, just obedience. Silas felt cold, forced happiness. Leora said quietly, is just another form of fear. Silas whispered. Then what happens to the people labeled energy thieves? They exchanged a glance. The man sighed. Come. You should see for yourself. He led Silas deeper, toward an archway lined with lanterns. Every instinct in Silas's body tightened with unease. The secret of the thieves. The hallway grew narrower, darker. The air turned cooler, almost damp. They reached a door with thick iron hinges. The man pulled it open. Silas stepped inside, and his breath left him. Not in fear, in heartbreak. There, scattered across beds and reclining chairs, were dozens of people alive, unharmed, but deeply asleep. Some looked peaceful. The man spoke with sorrow. They drained them. Silas's pulse hammered. Drained how? Every time a citizen pushes for positivity at a party, the man explained. The city siphons off a small amount of their natural emotional energy, not the joy, the resistance, the discomfort, the authenticity. He looked at Silas with ancient, weary eyes. The meters collect truth, not noise. Silas's stomach twisted. All those parties, all that forced cheer, feeds this machine, the man said, pointing to a huge pulsating device connected to the sleeper's meters. The city repurposes honest emotion to power its illusions. Leora added softly. Energy thieves aren't criminals, Silas. They're simply people who ran out of mask to give. Silas stared at the unconscious faces. Some were young. All of them were empty. He felt his own vibe meter burn warm against his chest, as if reminding him the city still owned every breath he took. He swallowed hard. What do you want from me? The man placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. We don't want anything. Leora stepped closer, her eyes soft but resolute. But we believe you want something from yourself. Silas looked at her. What? A way out.